Today I'm going to be doing an April budget closeout, talking about how much I earned, how much I spent, and how I'm really feeling about my finances lately. And welcome back to my channel. My name is Avery and we have a lot to get into today, so let's go ahead and get into it. Starting pretty basic with my income, I have a few different income sources here and we'll just talk about it now. I do have a high yield savings account and I got $29.15 and an interest payment. It's still listed as my new job, but I've actually been in this job since July, so it's not really new anymore. But I got 2 paychecks from that job, and after taxes I brought home $3,377.62. And then this here is a refund I got, or a cashback credit I got on my American Express card. I had bought Broadway tickets because we are going to a Broadway show when we go to New York City at the end of this month. And what I ended up doing was looking at the reward offers, and they had one where if I spent a certain amount of money with Today Tix, which is one of the many websites you can use to buy Broadway tickets, I would get $30 back. So I went ahead and did that, and that's why it's showing us $30 here, which maybe isn't technically income, but let's talk about that in a second. I'll also mention that they are doing like multiple construction outside, and you're probably going to hear that the entire time, and there's literally nothing I can do about it, so sorry about that. Finally, we have Zelle. So my fiance Nathan sends me money to help cover some of the dog expenses, and I just manage that sinking fund, and he sent me $150 for that. I will say with that, the Today's Ticks, I don't know if I'd necessarily consider these income sources, but I personally am not super particular about how the income works, and I use the budgeting software YNAB, so anything that inflows into ready to assign is considered income. If you don't want it to be considered income, you would inflow it into a specific category, and it operates more like a refund. But combining everything together, I got $3,586.77 to work with income or just money this month, and now we'll talk about how I ended up spending that money. These are in no particular order, so I have everything in my budget now set up basically in alphabetical order by group category, which is why you see, although I'm realizing now auto and transportation should be above Avery Improvement Fund, but whatever, mostly alphabetical order. So let's go ahead and get into these categories and talk about how much I spent. So starting with my spend membership, I spent $134 total. This is $119 for my monthly unlimited classes, and then if you have any sort of late cancellation fees, they charge you a $15 late cancel fee, which means if you cancel within 12 hours of the class, that's considered late cancellation fee. So I had a couple of these there, although I did redeem some cash back on my credit card to kind of cancel one of these out, which is why the amount was only $134. I will say I did just request to cancel this. They're going to charge me one more time in the month of May, but then it will be gone moving forward, which is completely fine with me because I want to start cutting back on my spending. Clothing and beauty, I spent $32.40. This was just things like body wash, razors, things like that I really need to stock up on that I just hadn't spent money on. I personally kind of struggle in the clothing and beauty category because I don't always have I never know what to buy, and I don't always have a lot of confidence in myself, so I don't spend a ton of money on this, but I anticipate in the future I might end up spending more. Personal development, I spent $90 on a business news subscription, so basically business news around my city and state, and this is for a yearly membership, and it's basically both a newspaper and an online news website. It was a discount, however I think I probably won't repurchase this simply because it's not super necessary. However, this is what I've really been interested in lately, like business development news, and it's somewhat related to my job, so I think it made sense to go ahead and purchase this. So total in the Avery Improvement Fund, I spent $256.40. And this category group is basically just things that I think help improve my life. Another way to think about it is some people it's spending, shopping, whatever, but I think of this more as personal development. Moving on to auto and transportation, I spent $73.50 on fuel, $10.05 on parking, which means my total auto and transportation cost was $83.55. I For me, this isn't a super ton of money. However, this is more than I typically spend on gas. It's simply because I've been driving a lot to go to TMS treatments, which is a transcranial magnetic stimulation treatment for basically treatment-resistant depression. So I have to drive about an hour or so total every single day in order to do this appointment, and obviously that means I'm spending more money on gas. And then parking, this is just for parking around the city. Sometimes I also cover my sister's parking if she comes to town, because you just use like the Park mobile app and you have to purchase it on there, and it's easier for me to just add another license plate than it is for her to just download the app and get everything going. So between the two, like I mentioned, it's $83.55. Now let's talk about debt and savings. For some people, they might not consider this an expense. However, the way YNAB works, which is the budgeting software I use, is anytime there's money that's going out of your bank account and heading to a different place, it's considered an expense. So that's why you see it here. And for my Roth IRA, I'm trying to max it out this year, and I put in $534 during the month of April, which gets me pretty close to maxing it out by the end of the year. I budget it out by my paychecks, which are bi-weekly. My brokerage, I decided to put more money in here simply because I know the stock market was kind of all over the place, and not trying to time the market, but I did want to put more money in, especially if it's down, sue me, whatever. I decided to put $400 into my brokerage, which brings my total, and there was no debt payments for the month. I guess I should mention that because my student loans are currently in forbearance, which is why you don't see them. Basically, my total investments or savings was $934 for the month of April. Moving on to my Dogs Cost $1 Trillion fund. I have a dog. She's a 2-year-old Shih Tzu named Cece, and I have a few different categories for her. This was kind of an expensive month. One, because we spent $95 on her grooming, so she got a full haircut. I might try to shop this around. It's just really hard currently with our work schedules to find something that works that's also close by, because I can't exactly waste a bunch of time going back and forth to the groomers. I just don't have that much flexibility right now, especially since I can't really make up any hours if I can't get them done for the most part, because I'm honestly not able to wake up much earlier and get anything done. I'm just so tired and exhausted, and after work I'm going to TMS, so I don't have time after work to make up hours, if that makes sense. So the long story short, this is kind of a lot of money, $95 for the groomers, and she kind of needs to go back for a bath soon. I don't know, we might shop this around because I'm kind of feeling some sort of way about my spending lately, which I will talk about more probably at closer to the end of the video. For food and treats, we spent $30, and this is mostly like dog treats. Like we bought dental bones, so basically so her teeth smell good or whatever, so her breath don't stink. And we bought a couple treats as well. We actually don't really buy her a lot of treats, and she kind of has a lot of allergies, I guess. So I don't have any problems with this, honestly. Unfortunately, though, we did end up buying a year's worth of her Bravecto chews, which I believe is flea and heartworm. Let me know if you think this is a lot of money. When you budget it out per month, because this will cover a full year, it's not like the end of the world, but I feel like this is a cost that people don't necessarily think about when they get an animal or a dog. So definitely something to keep in mind is that you should probably do routine, basically any sort of routine maintenance for an animal, and that includes flea and tick, because I don't need her getting fleas, I don't need her getting ticks. That's going to factor into your monthly spending. It kind of seems like a lot. I know there's options at the store, not necessarily your vet, but my understanding with this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding with this is those are not as effective as getting something like Bravecto, which of course they don't sell just over at the store. All of that brings us to almost $400 on CC this month. Yeah, I feel like the month of April, almost everything happened all at once, and that's why I ended up spending $397.65 on my dog. Moving on to entertainment. So this is basically, looks like just a subscription category to me. I ended up switching back to Spotify. They gave me a bit of a promotion. So for the month of April and the month of May, I'll spend $6.47 a month. Then I have Kindle Unlimited, which is $12.95 a month. I honestly get a lot of mileage out of this. I obviously have it because I read books. because I read books, so I don't really have any plans to cancel this anytime soon, but we shall see. I spent $2.16 on a monthly Patreon, and then I spent $24.83 on YouTube Premium, which is the family plan, which covers me, my fiance, my dad, and my stepmom, so we're getting a lot of usage out of that. So total for entertainment is $46.41. All right, moving on to food, I have a few different categories here: groceries, coffee, dining out, date night, and then adding it all together. With my groceries, I only spent $125.23 on groceries, which looks like I just went to Kroger one major time and then I had a stock up. Obviously, maybe not obviously, but I will tell you that of course we bought more groceries than this. It was just Nathan had bought them, which is why you don't see it here. I spent $42.30 on coffee out, and some of this I think I had bought for Nathan as well, but for the most part this is just me buying a latte. Like, not much to say about that. I spent $312.40 on date night. If we look at some of these, I ended up like redeeming some cash back on some of these just to bring the total down. I had cash back on my credit card. I don't know. I feel like I've got a spending problem lately. I lost some sort of discipline that I used to have when I was young or when I was not in a relationship. I feel like you spend so much more money when you're actually in a relationship. Your fixed expenses might go down, like, because you're splitting those major expenses with people or with your partner, but the amount of like little spending you do, I feel like kind of goes up, 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 up. But yes, I went to a lot of pastry places. I honestly, most of this is like literally pastries. I guess I just love a croissant. I love a cookie. I love a this. I love a that. It doesn't even look like, and kept buying bagels. So we could work on that. We could definitely work on that. There's some room for improvement with that, but I don't know. At the same time, I spent $53.50 on date night, bought us a pizza, and then I bought us some pastries, and I just categorized that as date night. So my total food was $533.43. I think I don't feel particularly concerned about this on its own. Combining all my spending together and looking at what I can actually cut, though, the only thing that you typically feel like you can cut is your food spending, because you kind of have a lot of decision making over that. So even though my budget for food is around $500 a month, which I'm pretty spot on with, I probably should consider bringing it down. I don't know. We'll talk about this more towards the end, because I want to just give you my overall thoughts on how the month of April went at the end. Okay, so $533.43 on food. Moving on to fun, I bought a concert ticket. I'm going to see Lucy Dacus, or Dacus. I'm going to see Lucy. And this costs about $57, and this will be when she comes to Ohio. And then I bought 2 books. One of them was a Kindle deal, and then I bought the new Emily Henry novel, which I have not finished yet. Books have not been hitting lately. Like, they are not hitting lately, but I did spend $18.34 on books. So total fun was $75.27. Although if we add in the entertainment, which is just a different variation of having fun, it's closer to $125 total, so something to keep in mind. Moving on to holidays and gifts, I spent $60 in the holidays category, and this was me buying a carrot cake for Easter, which I haven't typically used this category for holidays outside of Thanksgiving and Christmas before, but I guess we're trying something new. And also I just felt like I was running out of places to pull money from, and I needed to buy a cake, so I feel like I'm not doing great with like anticipating expenses lately. So $60 from holidays, and then $76.50 on tickets, and this is for Nathan's birthday. I just bought his Broadway ticket instead of him sending me money for it. I'm like, okay, we'll just call this your birthday present. So, by the way, we're seeing the Broadway show and Juliet when we go to New York City. Last time we were there, we saw the Book of Mormon, so this time around we're watching and Juliet, and we'll see how that goes. So I'm excited. It'll be fine. But for total holidays and gifts, I spent $136.50. Everything I spent in every category this month, I think. The only one I didn't spend any money on was probably student loans, which I probably should have spent money on that one and not money on all these other ones. But what do we know? Moving on to household bills. I moved at the end of March, beginning of April, which is why you see I spent $1,699.37 because there was overlap between my old lease and my new lease. So basically, I paid for 2 different places for April's rent. Well. It's what it is what it is. Let's just move on. Spent $12.52 on household. Okay, so basically what happened is we bought a shower curtain, then we bought some other nonsense. I don't even know. Like, what do you need? You need like cleaning supplies. That's what we bought. We bought cleaning supplies, and then I split this transaction like crazy, this Target transaction specifically. So then Nathan sent me $35. I just inflowed it into household, and that's how we get to $12.52 after that's all said and done for my household expenses. For moving, I spent $295, and this was the pet deposit. They honestly have not been charging us correctly this entire time. Like, every single transaction they've put on the account, I think I've had to message them about because it wasn't right. They had our rent wrong. They didn't charge us the pet deposit. I didn't need to hear about it later, so I asked them about that. They were charging us renter's insurance, so I already had that. And then they just charged the pet rental fee, the pet monthly fee twice. So long story short, I did have a moving expense, and this was the pet deposit. And then this category is kind of a mess. It's my reimbursements category. So typically when I buy something, like let's say I am preparing for a trip to New York, if you will, preparing for my trip to New York, I have been the master coordinator of this entire trip, which honestly, if you do this in the friend group, shouts out to you, because it is the most exhausting thing ever to coordinate everything, so basically I bought the tickets, I picked the hotel, I picked the events, and by tickets I mean plane tickets. The hotel hasn't come out yet. But if we look at these transactions here, you can see I separated out all 3 of their flights. So this doesn't include my flight. And then someone sent me money, and then I immediately gave it to someone else. And then someone sent me money for their flight. And then I'm like, I'm not the best at like accounting for things. Like, I feel like things go in weird categories. Same thing with the Broadway tickets. Then I got some money back, and then someone sent me some money, but I'm still technically in the hole for $393.31. The way that YNAB works is you can't just let that overspending sit. You need to cover it with money you actually have. So I covered it. That way I can, pay my credit card bill without going into interest or debt or whatever. That's how we have negative $400 in reimbursements, which normally isn't a thing. So basically, blah, 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 blah. I'll get some of this money back. It's just not going to be in a quick time frame. And that's how I spent $2,400 in household bills. Moving on to medical. I'm so sick of the medical bills. I really am. You can see I spent over $400 on medical expenses. I want to remind you, I have health insurance that I pay thousands, like over $1,000 in premiums each for the whole year. And I still be just like for medical bills. I'm fighting for my life here. And you know what? Right before I filmed this video, got a call from my doctor, and it was like, this call was ridiculous. They called me, and they're like, we need to schedule your, it was blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, my what? For Dr. So-and-so. I'm like, I don't know what this is. I haven't heard about it. They're like, did you see your message in my chart? Which, by the way, for whatever reason, I don't even get the notifications properly for that. So, no, I didn't see it. And they're like, well, you gotta get blah, 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 some sort of abnormal test. This is another specialist. And they're like, okay. I'm like, all right, let's schedule it. Her nearest availability is July 11th. My insurance resets July 1st. I'm currently finally mercifully hit the out-of-pocket max. So, I really wanted this to happen in like May or June, if I'm being honest. So naturally it's happening July 11th. And I just get to kickstart off the freaking medical bill train again. I spent $270 on TMS. This is on a payment plan. supposedly it's once a month, but they charged me again already. So okay, so $270 on CMS, $20.77 on prescription, $10.35 on medical supplies, $119 on medical bills. Yes, $119 on medical bills. And honestly, I've got a medical bill past due right now, and I've just been ignoring it because I just, like, I'm not kidding you. I'm gonna complain for a second here. I'm not kidding you. The pay raise that I got has gone completely to medical bills. And the fact that, like, I'm already getting scheduled for shit that's gonna happen starting in July or afterwards, it's just so... And I gotta see a cardiologist, too. It's got a heart problem. I know cardiology ain't cheap. There ain't no way. Like... And then also, we got open enrollment for my job, and they're increasing our monthly, like, our premium per paycheck. It's going up like more than $15 a paycheck, which, by the way, how the hell do you do this if you have a husband, like, if you have a spouse on your health insurance, it's obviously more expensive. If you have kids on your health insurance, obviously more expensive. And then your out-of-pocket max is higher, and so is your deductibles and everything. How do you do it? I want to know, how do you do it? Because you're not making any much more income than I am, you know what I mean? Like, the people that are working this job, at my job, it's not like they're getting some surplus for having to deal having a bunch of children. Like... I don't know. I do not know. I'm so tired of it. I really am, y'all. I really am. Basically, this is a bunch of, like, co-pays, payment plans, whatever. And that's how I spent $420.12 on medical. Moving on to technology. Technology is pretty straightforward. 99 cents on iCloud, $15.10 on Apple Care. Both of these are a few years old now, so it might be time to start considering canceling these. So I could save $15 because that's apparently going to help me. So $16.09 on technology this month. Then vacations. As I mentioned, I have a New York City vacation coming up. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm taking a break. Like, actually, hold me to it. If you hear me start talking about our vacation, I'm taking a break from vacation spending, at least cross-country travel or flying type of vacations after this trip, because the cost of things, it's just not possible. I'm gonna go on, like, Ohio road trips or something, because I'm going to be Midwest road tripping or something, because I'm going to go to West Virginia and hang out in the Appalachian Mountains or something, because I'm not doing this. I ain't got no more money. Like, I am booked. The Bank of Avery, she needs a bailout. The Bank of Avery needs a bailout, because I spent $106.50 on Broadway, and that's a ticket, and then $233.96 on my flight, which brings my total vacation spending for the month to $340.46. But yeah, with the way things are going, I don't really have a big interest on spending a ton of money on vacations at the moment. It's just not working super well. It'll be fun, but I need to take a break. I need to step back and have some free time. You know what I'm saying? Moving on to YouTube expenses. I spent $107.96, and this was buying a mouse, a laptop stand. That might literally be it. I bought this mouse. Terrible, by the way. Literally a horrible mouse. I don't recommend it. Although, I will tell you, I'm using it with a MacBook, and it's not an Apple mouse. By the way, the Apple mouses, please, can we get real? Like, I need a real mouse Apple, especially when I try to use a non-Apple mouse, it doesn't even work. Because when I use this with a different computer, and it was a Microsoft, like Windows computer, it was fine. It works like a mouse. When I use it here, it's like, like it does not work very well. But moving on, I did buy that. And I bought this lovely laptop stand, which I actually like that one. So $107.96 on YouTube expenses, $12.99 on Canva, which is how I make these lovely thumbnails and other things throughout the videos if I put them in. That brings me all the way down to my total expenses, which was $5,761.03. $5,761.03 for 1 month. I remember probably not long after I graduated college, this could have been like a whole quarter of spending. Because what is that, like $1,900 or so? This could have been a whole quarter's worth of spending. This wasn't a great month because you'll see down here, basically for all the money I came in, more money went out than came in. So it's like my bank account, because obviously the money had to come from somewhere, so it just kind of came from the various savings categories, went down over $2,000. Let's look at this with the fun little chart. Zooming out here, the double rent took up a big chunk of my percentage-based spending. So 29% went towards being alive, basically. 9% went towards my Roth IRA, and 7% went towards my brokerage. So at least 16% of my income, or my spending, I guess, went to investing. 7% sitting around with my reimbursements. Dining out was 5%. Moving was 5%. Cece's vet expenses, just the vet expenses, were 5%. TMS took up 5%. First of all, these are all different numbers, so 5 or so percent. Vacation was 4%, spin classes was 2%, and then everything else combines together for about 21%. If I look over here, it kind of tells me more. Basically, groceries were 2% of my expenses, spin classes 2%, medical bills, YouTube, Broadway, personal development. All of that was about 2% of my spending. I'm curious here. Let's go down to food. My average daily spending on food was $17.78. What that means is that basically every day that I was alive in the month of April, I was spending almost $18 a day on food. Seems like a lot, in my opinion. Now I just want to talk a little bit about how I'm feeling about my spending lately. I feel like the first quarter of this year, and I guess April as well, the first 2 quarters of this year have been an adventure, to say the least. There are decisions I have made that I personally will not make again. I don't regret moving. Like, I wanted to increase that expense. But I feel like I've kind of overextended myself in the sense that, like, January, like, first week of January, I don't even know, like, January 2nd, I spent a ton of money on, and that came from my emergency fund. And I might get some of that back at some point, but for the most part, it's a wash. And then I'm kind of floating people on holidays, which is not the greatest thing to do, especially if you're like me. If you're pulling in 10 grand a month, go for it. But like, and you want to do that, go for it. But like, I'm tracking every penny, you know, like I need to keep that. Like, I don't have as much buffer room because my income is just not high enough to really just be some super generous person, if I'm being honest. If I'm being honest, I don't want to decrease at least my Roth IRA. I don't want to decrease my investment expenses or how much I'm putting towards my investments, because the way I kind of see it is like I'm poor now, but if I pull back on that, I'm just gonna be poor later too. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just think I've kind of overdid it this first few months of the year, which at this point is like almost half of the year. And I'm not feeling super confident about the second half of the year either, especially from a medical perspective. Like, I feel so drained and burnt out lately because I'm trying to deal with all of this on top of everything else. Now, I obviously made like my financial goals video that I posted last week, so go check that out. And I am happy with like the progress towards my financial goals, but overall, my financial picture, especially my spending, I am feeling some type of way about this. I don't know. And it's difficult too, because there's certain things I'd love to spend more money on, like, to be honest, like beauty and clothing. I'd love to have clothes I actually like and that fit me. And then same thing with like beauty, I'd love to actually have, like, do something about the eyebrows, you know, whatever the insecurities are that women have. I mean, I have them too. Like, but I don't spend money on them currently. Obviously, can't spend $5,800 a month. That's not sustainable. Not on my income. I'm a little like, I don't know there's no really like quick ways to get income up. I want to keep progressing towards my financial goals, but I really just feel like I'm getting dinged on things. Like, I can decrease my food spending, but like I can't decrease my medical spending, you know? Like, saving $100 on food isn't really going to get me anywhere if it's just everything else is getting blown out. Like, I don't know. Hopefully some of that makes sense. I can't be the only person that just kind of feels like their spending is out of control. Which I've gone through periods where I've spent more money. I think at the moment though, I've been in my job it's be a year in July. Nathan started his job back in October or November or something like that. Between that was a significant increase in income, but I haven't really seen the fruits of that labor yet. And maybe some of this has something to do with the stock market, because we did increase our investments, but we know how that's going. Combined with a bit of a middling stock market and then higher spending than normal, being in a period of transition and trying to take care of myself and everything else that costs money, it feels like a lot of things might be in motion. But back to the income. So we just increased our income, but it still doesn't really feel like we've gotten anywhere. If you have suggestions on ways I can decrease my spending, food is an obvious one, but if there were other things, I canceled my spend membership, so that'll help as well. But if there are other ways that you think it might help me to reconsider or recalculate, let me know. Obviously, I keep saying obviously, but like I can cut back on my vacations after this month is over. So probably that'll happen. Things like that. I'm probably will I'm going to look through all my category groups and see if I can recalibrate any of them, specifically how much money I'm trying to set aside. For holidays, I think that could be more streamlined and pulled back. But yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling fine with how much I've contributed towards my financial goals, but my spending overall is obviously too high for comfort. So that is my April budget closeout. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button, as it really helps support my channel. If you want to see more content like this and budgeting and just keeping it real, definitely hit the subscribe button, stick around. Let me know how you've been feeling lately with the cost of things and just how you've been spending money, and if you're feeling some sort of way about it like I am. I'd love to hear about it, but I will see you on the next one, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.